Hi guys, my name is Zara and today we're going to be making a dress. So this dress is a cocktail length dress, I think, so it's super short. It's a circle skirt, which means you get that twirlability, that fullness, everything you want in a dress. Spaghetti straps and also a zipper in the back. To make this dress, I'm going to be using this kind of green silk fabric that I got from Joann's for around $5 a yard. I'm also going to link this in the description. But you can also just use whatever you have. If you have cotton, that would work too. If you want to do maybe like a cotton liner with an embroidered kind of organza or tulle over it, that would work too. Just work with what you have. If you would like to follow along with me, there will be a pattern in the description below. And this pattern is actually what makes this dress so beginner friendly, because all you have to do is trace it and then sew it the way that I sew it. So yeah, without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so here are the materials that you're going to need for this project. So obviously you need your fabric, some pins, scissors, tape measure, etc. You're also going to need interfacing. That's what that white roll is. And this just provides a little bit of stability, and it actually works as bra cups in our pattern. Okay, so jumping right into the cutting process. So I've already cut out all my patterns. I just printed them out, taped them together, and cut them out. And almost all of these pieces are cut on a fold. So I'm actually just making a little tiny fold on the side and cutting out all the materials that need to be cut on a fold. Actually, all of these pieces needed to be, but I forgot about that until after. But I did recut it. So I'm just pinning it together and then cutting it out. This is where the pins come in handy. I just pinned 2 to each, and you don't really even need to trace it anymore because it just does all the work for you. It stays in place and you just trace it out. And then it was at this point that I just got sick of using the scissors. I don't know, it was just kind of annoying. So I got out my rotary blade and like my mat and I started cutting. So you can just use the scissors. I had this on hand, so I used this, literally whatever you want to use. Okay, so switching gears a little bit, I just wanted to talk about how to read a pattern in case y'all don't know. So basically, you cut out the pattern, obviously. There's a layer inside, I'm gonna point it out, and what's outside is the seam allowance. And those little notches, those kind of just tell you where you're supposed to meet the edges at. So it can be useful if you don't know where to align pieces, you just match the notches to each other. So you cut a little notch in where it says to. And I'm so sorry for this shot. I thought it would look way cooler in my head. But anyways, we're cutting out interfacing out of the 2 pieces, and you can actually see right here all the pieces I've cut out. I've labeled them 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and I'm going to be referring to them like this from now on, so you can see where I've like kind of drawn the chalk pieces. This is number 6. I don't know if you can see that. But anyways, the first step is we're actually going to pin number 1 to number 2 on either side. So you can see I'm just pinning it together, and I'm making sure to match those notches, guys. That's why you cut out the notches, so that you can make sure that things are symmetrical and aligned. And yeah, oh my god, okay, I'm sure everyone's been waiting for this part, but it's finally time to start sewing. So I'm just threading my machine and starting off, and we're just doing a basic straight stitch, guys, nothing fancy. So just sewing that up. And then I realized I made a mistake, so I'm gonna let Zara from the past tell you about that one. So I had just sewn on the first seam of the bodice, and wait, let me just show you. The whole thing came apart. I forgot to wind my bobbin, so the whole thing just didn't get sewn. So reminder, guys, check your bobbins before you sew. Okay, let's try this one more time. Okay, and now we're gonna do the same thing to the other side. Alrighty, so we just finished our first 2 seams, and you can kind of see the shape starting to take place already with just these 2. So these seams actually act as built-in darts. It actually contours it really nicely. Now you can see that on my mannequin there is a whole lot of space right over here, also the middle over there. So we're actually going to take care of that in the end. First, we're going to be sewing together the whole bodice. So we're going to take it back away to voiceover Zara to continue this tutorial. Thank you, Past Zara. Okay, actually, can we like freeze here for a second because I have to tell y'all something? Thank you very much. So what I'm telling you to do in this clip is to sew the fabrics with the 5s on them to the fabric with the 2s on them, but actually we're doing a side zipper. So what I'm going to need you to do is only sew 1 5 to the 2, and which side you sew depends on whether what your dominant hand is. If you're left-handed, you're going to sew the left side, and if you're right-handed, you're going to sew the right side, and that's because the side that you're not sewing is going to have a zipper on it, and your dominant hand is the one that's going to lace up the zipper. So for example, I'm left-handed, so I should have only sewn up the left side, the left panel with the 5 on it, but I did both, and that was a mistake, one that I will pay for a little later in the video. So I'm just telling you right now so you don't need a seam rip in the future. My bodice is going to be symmetrical right now, and yours is not going to be, but it's gonna come back to bite me in the end. So please just do one side. And with that, we are now going to see me sew for no reason because I'm going to be seam ripping this later anyways. Okay, so now we've sewn together all of our pieces and it's looking a little rough so far, but don't worry, it will look better. This is oh, sorry, okay, I forgot my puppy came in the frame of this. But oh, there he is again. Okay, but yes, it's looking a little rough, but you gotta trust the process. I promise it is going to turn out good. So now I'm going to show you how to attach the interfacing. So you're going to take your interfacing, and I have iron-on interfacing, and the important thing to note with this interfacing, especially, ooh, cool camera trick, is that the bottom side of the interfacing that's facing the fabric should have the little glue dots on it, because that is how the adhesive sticks. If it's the wrong way, then it's going to stick to your fabric that you're putting above it. Like, so this is just to prevent it from burning when you're ironing it. So make sure your interfacing is the right way, guys, and we are ironing. And I wouldn't recommend ironing on this kind of rubber board because I did kind of warp it a bit, but do as I say, not as I do. Okay, and then once you finish ironing all your pieces, you're just going to put the interfacing and the bodice right sides together and sew it. And I'm not sure what I did wrong, but for some reason, when I sewed this together, I sewed it the wrong way. And so I sewed it wrong side to right side. And so you can see the result of that was that my bodice came out kind of weird. And anyways, the top portion was a little wrinkled. So I re-sewed it, and then we got a nice, clean, pretty finish in the end. You can see that we actually got a nice, pretty neckline in the end. Now, this is what it looks like from the back. Now, okay, can we stop the recording for a second? Okay, I'm pretty sure this is the last like stopping thing I'm gonna do as long as I don't screw up again. But basically what you're gonna do now is in this video I'm telling you that you're going to attach the 4 to both of our 5s. But as we know, we've only attached 1 5. So what you're gonna do is you're actually going to sew everything like I'm saying in the picture. But you're gonna leave the seam open in between the 5 and the 2. So the whole bodice should be sewn. You should have 1 seam in between the 5 and the 2 that is not sewn. If you're left-handed, it's going to be on your right. If you're right-handed, it's going to be on your left. Okay, and then once you've sewn that, you should see that there is 1 seam open either on your left or your right. The bottom is a little uneven for me, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be like that for you too, but we're going to fix that later. And now we're actually going to attach the back interfacing, and it's the exact same process as the front. Put it right sides together and then just sew right across. It was at this point that I finally realized my mistake with the zipper, and I spent a good 5 minutes explaining it, but we've already done that, so we can skip past this and go straight to the part where I seam rip and show you what it's actually supposed to look like at this point. Alright, so at this point you should have completed sewing together all the pieces in the pattern for the bodice, and what you're going to do at this point is you're actually going to go into a bathroom or someplace with a mirror and try this on. So there are 3 possible things that can happen when you try this on. First, it's too small. If it's too small, you're going to need to add another panel. But we still want our zipper to be on the side. So if you're going to add another panel, you're going to have to seam rip this part over here, and then measure yourself and measure your bodice to see how much you're off by. Divide that by 2 and cut rectangles that are kind of like this, where they're bigger at the top than the bottom. And you're going to sew those in here and here. And the reason that you're doing it over there is so that your pattern is still symmetrical, so that when you put your zipper in over here, you can still close it. And it'll be like on the side and not in some weird area where it's like the really left of your back or the really right of your back, right? The second thing that could happen is your top fits just right. And this does not mean that there's like excess left over. This means that literally when you put it on, this part and this part are barely touching. Like it's just like that right over there. And I'm sorry, but if that's happening to you, you're also gonna have to add some fabric, because when you put in a zipper, you need at least, I would say, an inch of fabric to be able to close it comfortably. So if this is you, I would say maybe if you wanted to, you could maybe get away with just adding one panel at the end. It probably won't be too noticeable, but it just depends on you. And if this pattern is a little big on you, then that is good. That is what we want, because you are going to need to put your zipper in. And like I said before, that extra inch is really going to help. Okay, so if you have measured out your top and it's looking good, what we're going to do next is we're going to be making some straps. So there's actually a strap pattern that is included with the pattern that you get, but I don't particularly like that strap was included if someone just really wanted to just use the pattern. But me personally, I don't like to make straps with a video. I don't like to make straps from a pattern because I feel like for me it's just way easier to make them. So my favorite way to do it is to cut out an inch and a half of whatever fabric I'm using. And a really cool way to get straight fabric like this oh my god, a straight cut on your fabric every time is I'm gonna measure out 1.5 over here. So right here, this is 1.5, and I'm gonna put up a picture on the screen of what these straps look like when they're done, and you can decide if you want them thicker or thinner. You can also just follow the pattern, it's really up to you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a teeny tiny little notch. You got to be careful and make sure that this notch is parallel with your edge. So if I fold this over, that's pretty parallel. And now what you can do is you can just rip just like that, and you get a straight edge. And normally I would be a little worried by the frayed edges, but we are actually going to be folding this over each other. I'll show you how. So it doesn't even matter that the edges are frayed, but it's a lot faster than cutting individually like the whole thing. And now I've just estimated how much fabric I'm actually going to need. If I fold this in half and put it around my shoulder, it gives me a lot extra to work with. So just kind of eyeball it. You don't need, like, I mean, if I measure this, I can for you guys if you want. Okay, so I did around 46 inches, but you can really just do whatever length you want. And now I'm going to show you how to fold it. Okay, so I made a quick little like animation to basically show you how to fold it. Basically, you just put one side in, other side in, fold it over in half, and then sew along the edge. And that's what I'm doing right here. I would recommend pinning it. I did not, and you can kind of see, I mean, it's sped up times like 20, but it took me a minute because I would stop every 2 seconds and then I'd have to adjust it and then go again. So I would just suggest pinning it and then sewing it all at once. It'll make your life easier. Now when you're done with the straps, we are going to actually attach them, and we're going to start with the back because it's easier to try it on that way to measure them. So we're going to be sandwiching the straps in between the interfacing that we put in previously and our first layer. So what you're going to have to do is basically seam rip the highest points. So you can see where I've pinned my straps, I'm going to be seam ripping that area just a little teeny bit and then shoving that in and sewing over it again. You can see how when I'm pulling it out here, it's sandwiched in between the 2 layers. That's what we want. So try and make sure that you have a little bit of excess sticking out and just sew right across where you just seam ripped. When you finish sewing, it should look something like this, with it being neatly sandwiched in between the 2 layers. And you're going to do that for the other side as well. Once you've sewn both of the back pieces, you're actually going to go into the restroom or someplace with a mirror and just try on what you have. And where it hits in the front, your straps, like position them comfortably over your shoulders and pin them where they hit in your front. And then do the exact same thing where you're sandwiching them in between the inner facing and the fabric layers and sew it up, and you'll be left with something like this in the end. Okay, now it's everyone's favorite part, I'm sure. It's when we get to start the skirt, and I think the skirt is actually the most fun part. So over here, you can't really see it, but I have both of my skirt layers, both of my skirt pieces right over here. And the first thing we're gonna do is actually really simple. We're just gonna do a straight stitch on one side of each of the skirt pieces, connecting them together. Now I am done sewing. I should have a circle skirt with one slit in it, so one side that hasn't been sewn up. And now I'm actually going around and pinning up my skirt to hem it because we want a nice clean finished edge. So I'm measuring 19.5 all around because my pattern is around 20 inches for my skirt, and then just sewing it up. And this is what it looks like in the end. Okay, scratch that. I forgot to film a picture of the skirt hemmed, but it's fine. You're not missing out on much. It was the same circle, just slightly neater. But right now, it's time to attach the skirt to the bodice. And so I'm just doing that over here, just pinning it up and getting it all ready to sew. And I think the most important thing to keep in mind when you're doing this is to make sure that your pins are even, to make sure that your bodice is even where you're pinning it. You don't want it to be on a slant because with a circle skirt you can tell when something is crooked. So just make sure that everything is straight, everything is not like bunched up. It's really easy to mess up. But luckily nothing in sewing is permanent except for cutting. So if you do mess up, you can just seam rip and try it again. It actually took me 2 tries to get this skirt right because I did the first try and then I decided that I actually wanted my bodice to be smaller, but after I seam ripped and did it again, this was the result. Okay, so right now this is what the dress is looking like. I've just sewn the skirt to the top, but I think actually that I want to make the bodice shorter. I like shorter bodices better, so the seam hits at my waist rather than at my hips. So I've actually marked out where I'm going to do that, and I'm just going to take it in real quick and be right back. Oh, one more thing is at this point that you should be beginning to sew in your zipper, and the first step of that is measuring how long your zipper actually is so you can close part of your side seam. So you can see I'm measuring it right here, and all the fabric that's below that zipper, I'm just going to sew it up. Like, we're not putting anything there. That zipper gets put in after, but that fabric below, I'm just gonna sew it up to the other side. Right there, what I'm saying. Also, PSA to everyone, please make sure that you're like cleaning your sewing machine inner workings. They get dirty with like lint and thread and stuff. So just make sure you're doing that. I use like a computer vacuum I got for like $5. You can use a thread or whatever, you can use a brush or whatever you have on hand. And so then began the tedious process of sewing the bodice shorter, and then also I didn't film myself adding the zipper, which is really strange because I thought I did. Oh, also, guess what show I'm watching. I think it's pretty obvious, but I just watched the new season. It's such a bad show that it's good. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, so I sewed everything down. I'm so sorry, I don't have any footage of the zipper, but it's super easy to sew an invisible zipper. All you do is put it bad sides together, sew as close as you can to the zipper on both sides, and seam rip and do it again if it doesn't look good. And now at this point, I have finished sewing everything together. You can see I think the bodice is looking way better shortened, so I'm glad I did that. Everything's looking nice, clean. There's a few threads here and there. Obviously, we can fix that. That's super easy, just chop them off. And I think this was actually before I put the zipper in, which is very weird. I'm gonna find that somewhere. Like 2 months later, I'm gonna find the recording. But anyways, if at this point after putting in your zipper you find that your dress is too big, that's super easy to fix. All you have to do is go to the opposite seam of the zipper, so the one on your very left or right, depending on if you're left or right-handed, and just sew over that a little bit and just keep going and trying it on until you get the fit you want. And once you've done that, oh my god guys, you're done. Oh my god. Am I sitting on something? Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you got a really pretty dress out of it. I know I did. Even if it will, I'll have to iron that out a little bit. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you next time. Bye.